Hello, welcome to another edition of Prove All Things. I want to thank everybody for joining us today, whether you're watching on Facebook, YouTube, or X, or on the CGI Digital Network app, whether that's on your phone, tablet, or television. Thank you for joining us live. And for most of everyone else who is listening to this or watching this later, thank you for joining us as well. I'm joined with co-host Mike James. How you doing, Mike?
Hey Jeff, doing okay. I'm in a different location
Yeah.
today due to my daughter checking in to a college, and we're helping her move in, and we're going to her orientation tomorrow. So I'm in my brother and sister-in-law's basement in the laundry room, actually, because they got something going on upstairs, and we got some family members out in the other room here. So unique situation for me today.
Yeah, I think that'll work out as long as no one needs to do any laundry this morning. All right, yeah. So hey, good to see you again. I want to go ahead and bring in our guest right away, because when we always have this guest, we always want more. We always want more from them. So we're going ahead and get him started in here. We're going to bring in AJ Sanchez. How you doing, AJ?
Doing great.
Hey AJ, good to see you.
Yeah, I'm just enjoying the Texas heat. It's August, and it's like the most brutal time of year here. So it's rough. I mean, you got to start early and get out of the heat, or you're going to get cooked real quick. So if says it's 100, it feels like 110 at least. So it's been out. Yeah.
I saw
something. Midway through August, so not much more of that 100, right?
Right.
Yep. Yeah. Hopefully.
Yeah, I saw something about there's a heat dome over the United States right now, which is the unique around the world, where it's the hottest area in the world right now is the United States, which is really, I believe it, that it's definitely been very hot here in Atlanta as well. And I guess the humidity is what really gets you, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, like they say, we're not that far from the Louisiana swamp, but so you feel that you definitely have the heat of the night, because it doesn't cool down a lot of times. If it's 80 during the day, it's going to stay 77 at night if you're lucky. So, yeah, it's pretty brutal right now.
Anything else new with you since the last time we had you on the program?
So my wife gave birth to our son Ezra Lee. So he's 7 pounds 2 ounces, 22 inches tall. So hopefully he's going to be a basketball player, NBA all the way, right? Except there's one problem is the Sanchez's aren't really known for their hand-eye coordination, so you have to be able to dribble the ball or something like that. So I don't know what to tell him. We'll see what happens.
Oh, good luck with that. Yeah.
Mom's doing fine. Baby's doing fine. He's eating and sleeping. That's it. That's all he does.
Mm-hmm. So, very good.
Just to give everybody a quick bio for me. My name's Abraham Joseph Sanchez. I live out in East Texas. Been in the Church of God my entire life. Went to seminary ambassador. And ever since then, I've been just an avid Bible student. And I really enjoy looking into the scientific proof of God's existence and proving the validity of the Bible. And so I'm going to finish up our program on Noah's flood and the proof for the flood. And we had so much information, we could only get about partway through it. We talked a lot about last time on all the flood stories, over 500 different groups of people that have flood stories. We also talked about a lot of the sedimentary proof, especially the proof that a lot of these sedimentary layers that we see were laid at the same time, right? Because there's no erosion between the layers, and they were laid wet, because you see a lot of the proof of the moving of these sedimentary layers, and obviously why this has all been suppressed. But I know a lot of people are interested in start getting into Noah's Ark itself and where it's located. And one question that comes up a lot is, and both sides of the aisle have this question,
Mhm.
is if there's so many stories about Noah's flood and there's so much evidence that the flood took place, well, how come nobody's found it? Where is Noah's flood?
Mhm.
Well, what if we did know where Noah's Ark was,
Okay.
and that information has been suppressed like so many other things?
Mhm.
So I want to read a few quotes here real quick. All right. And about, past historians who have talked about Noah's Ark.
Okay.
Yeah, I can remember as a little kid, hearing stories about this, and that's 50 years ago,
Yes, absolutely. Okay, so here is Josephus, and this is what Josephus has to say about Noah's Ark. He said, he's referring to the location. He says, however, the Armenians call this place the place of descent. This is where Noah's Ark is at. For the ark being saved in that place, its remains are shown there by the inhabitants to this day. So at the time of Josephus, he knew where Noah's Ark was at.
Mhm.
And and this was around 995 AD.
Right.
Okay, so here's Berosus. He's a Chaldean, and he writes this around 300 BC, 290 BC. He said, it is said that there is still some part of this ship in Armenia at the mountains of Cordolan, and some people carry off pieces of the wood, the bitumen, which they take away to chiefly use as amulets. So basically souvenirs.
Yeah.
Okay, so he apparently knew where people said Noah's Ark was at. And here's Nicholas of Damascus. He's writing around 64 AD. He's a contemporary to Josephus. So he's confirming it. There is a great mountain in Armenia over the Mayans called Barius, upon it which is reported that many who fled at the time of the deluge, the flood, were saved, and that one who was carried in an ark came on shore upon the top of it, and that the remains of this timber were great while preserved. And this might be the man whom Moses, the legislature of the Jews, wrote. And so it's not just a couple of guys. We've got, and the Jewish Targum also refers to the location in Armenia for Noah's Ark. And there's also Armenian folklore, and they actually they've got a church that was built, the ruins are there near the site, once again referring to Noah's Ark. And
Okay.
even in some of the Islamic writings, Arabic writings, not
Right.
mixed Islam, they have a tradition of Noah's Ark once again being in the mountains of Armenia.
Okay.
And so that being said, I believe that there's overwhelming evidence that the Noah's Ark is located at the Durupinar site. And the name Durupinar comes from a captain who was the first one to locate it, I guess, in the 20th century, and he got the name for it. But there's a lot of reasons why we should consider that the Durupinar site is the actual site of Noah's Ark.
Okay, let me ask you a question, and then I'll let Jeff ask you right after. I'm sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
So you mentioned in some of these historical accounts here, Armenia is mentioned. So I've heard of the Mount Ararat area, Turkey, and things like that. We're going to focus today in a different location than the Turkey locations that I've heard of. Is that correct?
No. It's in Turkey. Well, modern day
Okay,
Turkey.
okay.
Modern day Turkey. These borders
Okay, modern day
change.
Turkey. So when we see Armenia there in those historical accounts, we're talking about years ago. We're not talking about our nation state setup today. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay,
And,
gotcha.
when I show you the map, I've got it here on Google Maps as well. You can see that the location is right there on the Armenian border, modern day Armenian border. Technically, it's in Turkey, but the Turkish Ottoman Empire, it expanded and contracted.
Sure.
So when you're
Mhm.
talking about stories that were given by Josephus, couple thousand
Yeah,
years ago.
I'm trying to anticipate questions we get sometimes after shows, so
Yeah.
just try to deal with them ahead of time.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, no problem.
I have a question just related to what you just showed, the quote you showed us, because I think the last one says it was on a mountaintop. But from what I understand, Durupinar, is it on a mountaintop, or is it? It looks like there's mountains higher than it where it's located. Is that correct?
True, but it's in a mountain ridge. But the other thing that we got to keep in mind, and here I'll pull up the photo here.
Yeah.
Is that it's in the middle of a mud flow.
Okay.
So here is a photograph of today, and here's an overhead photograph from the 1950s, and you see it's clearly in a mud flow.
Yeah.
And so it keeps moving down the hill.
Okay.
Every year it moves a few inches down the hill. And so it may have definitely been higher at one point in time, especially when at 390 BC, it's probably moved quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, but once again, it's in this area of Armenia. It's in the mountains of Ararat mountains, and that's what Scripture says. Genesis 8 verse 4 says it was in the mountains or near the mountains of Ararat. Right. So not necessarily the mountain or on top of the mountain.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it definitely connects with the biblical record of what area it may have ended up in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to talk about some of this evidence. The first thing that we should consider is the dimensions. So the dimensions, if you're looking at the current Durupinar site location, the dimensions come out almost exactly to what the Bible has. The Bible states that it was 300 cubits by 50 cubits by 30 cubits high. Mm-hmm. And especially considering it's been sliding down this mountain hill for, 4,000 years, it's pretty much spot on. The dimensions are. Mm-hmm. Now, there's some people that are skeptical because of the boat-shaped formation that it is. And one thing we need to keep in mind is that we don't know how much it's deformed over the last 4,000 years, especially sliding down the hill. Because I know in Scripture, it refers to the ark. It's a completely different word for ark that is used for ship. Mm-hmm. And so it's more like a vessel, it's just you're not supposed to, the difference between a wagon and a car, the wagon is a passive device, whereas a car is actually driving itself down the road. And so was the word ark is the same word that was used for Moses, I think, when he was placed in the basket. He's just floating down the river. And so people, a lot of times, they envision a more square looking.
I've heard that argument about some kind of rectangular shape.
It could be true. It's a guess.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's because God gave the plans for it, and God knows how water works, right? So He would have given them something that would have been stable in water, I believe.
Right.
Yeah, and I'm not opposed to that. All I'm saying is just because the current Durupinar site shaped more like a boat doesn't mean it looked that way originally.
Right. Yeah.
Because the walls.
I get the point. Yeah. Hey, AJ, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we like to, take questions from the chat box. We got one right now from Church Elder 3520. I don't know if Jeff can put that up.
Yeah, there it is. I can read it for you. It says, how do we know that the mountains of Ararat of the biblical accounts is the same mountains we call Ararat today?
Well, first of all, the word Ararat, it's a derivative of the Urartu. Okay. And it's the mountains of, if we're to use Hebrew, it'd be the mountains of the Urartu. Okay. Urartu kingdom. And this is the area that from archaeology, we know that they lived in. So that would be the area just above Babylon. Because remember, the Babylonians and also the Assyrians fought with the Urartu and tried to push them back. And that's the area of Turkey. And so, granted, it's a general term, but this is in that area. It is in the area of ancient Urartu. And that's what the word in Genesis refers to as the Urartu.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. There are some place names that have changed over time where you have a place name referring to something in modern times that's a different location. But yeah, my research has found what AJ is saying there. Yeah.
And we have also here William insists that there was a rectangle box, not shaped like today's ships. It wasn't made to go anywhere, just need to float. And what AJ is saying, that the shape we see right now does not necessarily mean it was not originally a box square.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and one thing you got to look at right here, we'll pull up this 1950s one, is the dimensions kind of look like as though the walls have fallen outward. And so the keel is kind of what's holding it all together.
Oh, I see what you're saying. That helps me a little bit when I look at it. What you just said.
The walls have fallen outward. They've eroded, and it's filled up with mud. And so the keel is what's holding the shape. And so once again, it could have been a lot more box shaped than what it is right now. And we look at some of the ground penetrating radar, then you'll kind of see how it's kind of morphed a little bit over time. So once again, I don't want to get in an argument. I just know over whether it was more square shaped or boat shaped. Like I said, it's been going down this mud flow for 4,000 years, and it is in the mountains of Urartu. But the big thing that I think we should consider is, where does the weight of evidence lie? And when you look at all the other indicators that are there, don't get caught up on the shape. I mean, we do the same thing with scripture. You know, when we're deciphering scripture, and I love when people learn hermeneutics on how to study the scriptures, look at it in context, look at the historical references, because it makes you a critical thinker. It makes you really get down to the evidence. And so many people today, they hear whatever the consensus of experts tell them, and they tell them some story, but they don't critically analyze it. And a lot of your ability to be able to critically look at information, you learn those tools from studying scripture and what the scripture specifically says and what it doesn't specifically say. And looking at the weight of evidence. If you got 50 scriptures that say this and one scripture that sort of says that, it tells you, hey, can I read those other scriptures into this, or should we use that one scripture to override the 30? Well, you know, that doesn't make any sense. And once again, that's where the weight of evidence comes in. So let's look at some of the evidence.
Yeah, make the case. Yeah.
So one of the biggest things is the droge and anchor stones that are out there. And
that term droge, I'm not familiar. What does that mean, man?
Okay, so I'm going to show right here now.
Okay.
So when you would have a ship, especially a cargo ship, it needed to lower its center of gravity, so it didn't flip over.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very common for a lot of these freighters of ancient dames. They would hang these stones from the bottom of their ship to lower the center of gravity to keep them from capsizing and flipping over. Very common. And so they called these droge stones. And then if they were actually used to stop the boat and they had a longer rope on them and they drag bottom, then it would be an anchor stone. So they could be used for either purpose. And so when we look at this area of the, let me square this up a little bit, of the Durupinar site, that's what we see is a lot of these droge and anchor stones.
Okay. Are they all about the same size?
They're different, very the same size, but they project by the size of these stones that this must have been a massive ship. So these are all scattered around the Durupinar site.
Okay.
They found 30, and there could have been even more of these stones scattered around the area.
Is that a hole I see in it?
Yep, that's a hole that's used to hold the rope. Okay.
So that's something Noah would have drilled out, that hole in there.
There's another one. There's another droge stone. It's got a hole in the side of it. And then there's another
reason. Is there any other reason for drilling a hole in these stones?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what they're used for, is as an anchor, and to lower the center of gravity of the ship.
Yeah.
Here's another one. And this is the other thing that's very interesting, is when you start seeing all these medieval inscriptions on these stones. And that's where you realize, hey, this was a venerated site for many years. This was pilgrimage site. And if you look at these inscriptions, and there were different styles of crosses at different times, and this was a type of cross that was, popular between the 12th and like the 15th century AD. And then there's some more crosses here that are a little bit more dated. So this is what they call this is on a Droge stone, okay? And this type of cross is they call it a cross fleur-de-lis. And this was very popular during the 12th century BC. And this was inscribed into the stone itself.
Are these stones right at the site, AJ, or are they in
right around the site
area?
Well, actually, they go in a line. They go kind of in a line in one direction away from the site, like they were being cut. Like as they started running aground, they started cutting these ropes as they started moving towards that site. So so there where you have these are cutting the ropes. Noah's coming in. He's dragging bottom with his stones. So he started cutting ropes and dropping them. And that's why you see them kind of in a line. So I've heard. I haven't been there, but that's what everybody says is they're in a line going away from the site.
I have a question that arises. So these stones right here, have we found stones like this anywhere else in the world? Or is it only here we find these stones?
The Droge stones are used, like I said, they were very common. They found them in the Mediterranean Sea. They found them in the Sea of Galilee. Gotcha. These Droge stones quite often, but not this size. This is quite a bit bigger than what you would normally see.
How far away is this site from water?
Yeah, that's the big one. Is it's really a far away. So if you think of I should have had my map up here before I had
that's a good question, Jeff.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me get this over here real quick. So here's this Durupinar site, and we're going to scroll out here real quick. I'm going to go to map view so we don't get too confused.
Oh, this is
Turkey.
Thanks for all the detail here. Yeah.
Okay, so there's Turkey.
Mm-hmm.
Here's Iran. You're right next to Iran. So the nearest body of water is a lake, kind of. It's not really an ocean. And there's the Caspian Sea, and there's the Black Sea, and there's the Mediterranean Sea. So you're a long ways away from any body of water. You would need this kind of a sailing vessel. And why is it up in the mountains? That's the other question.
Yeah. And the Caspian Sea probably was formed by the flood.
Most likely, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. But I mean, that's once the question comes up is why do you have all these Droge stones up on the top of a mountain in the middle between Turkey and Armenia?
Yeah, that's a weird place.
Hey, is there any answer from the other side of the aisle on that one, AJ, as far as critics of this site?
As far as I know, they haven't come up with anything yet, as far as I know. I mean, that's the game. If you spin what you can, and if you can't spin it, then you just suppress it and ignore it the most you can. And that's why there's never been a dig here. And that's one of the things that comes up is when you start seeing all this evidence that points towards, hey, there's a really good chance there's something here. Why doesn't somebody do a dig? Well, because
any information on that, AJ? Any reasons or
nobody's applied for a permit that can apply for a permit, and
there's no issue with Turkey as far as doing a dig there. Do we know anything about that or
no? Well, they're very similar to Israel and even the United States, where all of the archaeological permits have to be approved by someone who's an archaeologist with 10 years of dig experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just really limits the pool. And those people that can do it, they're so beholden to these archaeological societies that are all run by atheists. They're not going to do anything to ruffle anybody's feathers. And, and I laugh when I hear some of these archaeologists say, well, if that was Noah's Ark, then just do a dig, show the world. And they're the guys that are once again preventing people from doing it. So it's really aggravating, but that's the game they're playing. That's the game.
Now, there's news about this in the news lately. I've seen some news stories.
Yes.
At that site. What are those stories been about?
Well, they've recently done some more ground penetrating radar. And that's the one thing the Turkish government will let them do pretty often. And that and a few core drills. They've gotten permission to do a few core drills. They've got permission to do, because it's less evasive. And they've let them do some ground penetrating radar. And so once again, that's what they're being allowed to do. Can I show you a few more of these Droge stones? Because they're just
sure.
Chat real quick before we jump over to the ground penetration radar. You can see right here. This is one that we were looking at before. This one here has got some ancient inscriptions on it, and nobody can really decipher. They still to this day they haven't deciphered what it is. But once again, it shows the age in which this area was venerated. It's not something that has come up in the last 10 years or something. People decided to look at this, and that's important because a lot of people want to attribute this site to Ron Wyatt, and everybody hates Ron Wyatt except Christians. I mean, all of academia really does not like Ron Wyatt because he didn't ask for permission. He just went places, he broke laws, and he did stuff. I like the guy. I like his style.
Is he still around?
No, he died in the 90s.
Okay.
And but he's the one who did the most to bring attention to this site. But it'd been a venerated site for a long time, and it just was suppressed. But once again, you see these medieval inscriptions. You can date these between the 12th and the 15th century, the crosses.
Yeah.
AJ,
it would be really weird. It would be really weird for Christians just to travel there and just to randomly put crosses on something they weren't venerating. It definitely seems like they found something that these were important to them.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. They wouldn't just do it for no reason. I want to have you look at this Droge stone here real quick. Let me kind of move this over a little bit.
Yeah, while you're doing that, AJ, we got a question from Life Lessons saying, why does the Droge stone appear with crosses on it? And isn't that a reference to Jesus's crucifixion? Yeah, I believe that's what AJ is saying, that Christians may have had this idea that this was the area. And so many Christians use the cross, unlike we today in the Church of God, use the cross as a symbol of their Christian religion. Would you agree with that, AJ?
Absolutely. This is just it just shows that this was a venerated site by Christians, obviously not in the same doctrinal beliefs as we have, but time of the Crusades, medieval times, people believe this was a Christian religious site, which once again points towards the fact that this was believed to be the site of Noah's Ark. And all of these inscriptions just reinforce that.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I have any crosses in my house. I'm just saying that the people who were Christian had these. Made these inscriptions.
Is there any words on any of these stones, or is it only mostly crosses?
Mostly crosses. There's a few words in there, and they believe they were from the Hittite language, possibly, but they haven't been able to decipher them. So that was the previous stone. But the one that I think is interesting is this guy right here, because you see these crosses have the little legs on it.
Yeah.
Like
at the bottom.
Right. That was popular during a very specific time, and that was during the 12th century. No, excuse me. Yeah, the 12th century. During the 12th century. So we know during the 12th century, it points towards the 12th century as this being a popular pilgrimage site. And this stone here was apparently very popular to make.
Hey, any idea what that mountain in the background is? It looks pretty high.
I believe that is the mountain of Ararat.
Okay. I know it's pretty up there. Yeah.
And once again, this isn't at the site. This is near the site.
Okay.
This is down in the valley. Remember, he was cutting those ropes as he was going to the location. He was cutting the ropes of the stones, and this is out in some guy's field, and somebody tilted it upright. So it's very interesting to see all of the evidence, not just one piece of evidence, but a lot of other pieces.
All right, and I'm sorry about all the questions, but the question I have now is, like, if we have this, we have evidence that they were there, and we also have the evidence you showed that people were taking pieces of this away. Is there any evidence to, like, I know they have a lot of relics in the medieval times. Are there any churches that have, like, say that they have pieces of the ark anywhere that you know of?
Not that I know of. Now, there was a church that was specifically built to commemorate the site, and they have found the remains of this church, and it's called St. Jacob's Church of Nebesis, and they found the foundation of it. So, and that church was built, I believe, to commemorate, once again, the location of Noah's Ark. Another piece of evidence that points towards this being the site is from all the names of the villages in the area. So it's very common for the local people to hold on to these names for long periods of time. A lot of the archaeological sites that we've found, they found them because they researched what the local people, the natives, called an archaeological site. For instance, Bethel, Ramah, Beth Shemek, Gezer, Shiloh, all of these archaeological dig sites were found primarily because they asked the local people what the name of it was, and they saw a correlation between that and the biblical reference. And so that's very common for people to pass along these names for thousands of years of what they called the location, and they stick. And when you look at this area of the Durupinar site, I want to pull up this map here that I have, and you can see all of these areas, these villages that have very similar names that correspond to Noah's Ark. The village of 8, we know that Noah and his family of 8 were saved from the flood, right? It's called Kazan today by mainly a Turkish name, but that's what the original name was called, the village of 8. You've got Karga Manaz, which means the crow or the bird won't land. This refers to, Noah letting birds out to see if they could find dry land. And then you've got Zigguradagi, which means to make a pilgrimage. So once again, the name of that town was the pilgrimage town, pretty much. That's where you went to before you went to the Durupinar site, and it's right there next door to it. You go to, I'm butchering these names, and I
that's okay.
Apologize. Ugazili, which means to draw out of the water. And it also has a reference, when you call it Mazur, then it's referred to a day of judgment, And it's interesting that Moses had the same name in his root. Remember, he was drawn out of the water, taken out of the water. Well, that's the same root word that's used here in the word Mazur. Nezer, I'm butchering another one of these names. I don't have it here on this map. Let me move this a little bit. Here we go. Now you can see Arzap.
Okay, yeah.
Arzap means to capture the earth, or to cling to the earth. And then you've got right down here Gazadi, which means a place of anchorage, right? And this is a place where you find a lot of these droge and anchor stones is in that location. They found several there. And
what's the distance, like, say, of that Arzop location down to where it says Noah's Ark?
I think all of this is within like a 30-mile radius. All of this right
Okay, gotcha.
And then there's another town that's right next by, which is Nesler, which means to make a sacrifice. And so you've got all these names that really correspond to Noah's Ark right within like a 30-mile radius of this location. And that also, you start building this case of all these connections locally because of not just the Droge stones, not just the size of the site, where it's located, but you start building this case. And once again, as I stated before, it was really Ron Wyatt who brought a lot of attention to this in the 20th century. And he had made several trips there with Alan Roberts and David Fashold. And they started using a lot of this ground penetrating radar to try and read in the earth what was below the ground. The Turks let them, they had no problem with them using the ground penetration radar. And there's a bunch of photos with him. And they, once again, were finding regular rows of iron fasteners. They did some core drilling there, and they found a lot of hair and petrified dung and antlers and all kinds of animal remains in there.
So you could see this with the radar, that they didn't necessarily hold it in their hand. They're saying that's under the ground here.
No, they found some. There's some photographs of it. I don't have it, but they've got chunks of petrified antlers, chunks of petrified dung when they pulled out these core samples, when they've done these core samples.
Okay, gotcha.
And then the evidence was enough that's where the Turkish government finally built this Noah's Ark Visitor Center, and they've got no problems acknowledging that this is Noah's Ark. And, you know, maybe it's a cash grab. Maybe they're doing it for tourism. But it's not just in the 20th century that they've been having visitors. This has been going throughout time. And so that's kind of one of the reasons they did. Mm-hmm. Well, after Ron Wyatt died, then this man named Andrew Jones, he began doing a lot more of these ground penetration radar, and now he's able to do some imagery, because everything Ron Wyatt did, you couldn't really look at it. But here's an overlay of some of the ground penetrating radar, and you can see these regular lines and perpendicular lines in it. Mm-hmm. Here you can see where at one depth, he shows in where you could see that there's almost like a spine down the middle of it, you know, the at the bottom of the hole, you know, the keel of the boat. And here's a close-up of some of those other ones where you see these perpendicular lines throughout the building site. And this is some that he was done recently. And so the other thing is
I do have a question. Because again, I always want to, you know, we're trying to prove all things. Did they scan the area around the boat that wasn't where they believe the boat was at?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
And here are the things they found. They found a much higher level of organic material than outside the boat. They found a much higher amount of iron on the site than outside the site.
Okay.
And then once again, they found these regular lines that weren't found anywhere else.
Okay.
And so when you start adding up all of this information, that's where it starts becoming harder and harder to ignore the evidence. Mm-hmm. There's a great website, and I'm going to take you to the website here. It's called holylandsite.com. And they've got a video specifically on this topic, and you're going to see a lot more information on it. He goes through it. It's quite long. But if you're really interested in this topic, just look at the evidence. I believe the evidence is pretty conclusive that this is the site of Noah's Ark. And once again, if this is all fictitious, why doesn't academia do a dig there and prove him wrong. And once again, they refuse to do so.
The guy with the recent stories who's been out there, and I read some news articles this year. Is he trying to do more? What's the latest on that? The fellow who's done some of this.
Andrew
radar.
Jones. Yes, Andrew Jones has picked up where Ron Wyatt kind of left off, and he's regularly upgrading his equipment. He's regularly trying to get more permits to do it, and they're pretty quick to let him do it. The Turkish government actually works with him, and what he's basically doing, he's trying to apply pressure. He's trying to apply enough pressure to academia to try and get somebody to go out there and do a dig, and that's the end goal. And hopefully they will eventually do a dig out there and find some real significant evidence. But I don't know. They're so biased against it. They would have to find some way to rig it, but I don't know what they would do.
Okay, so that's kind of the latest,
right?
And we're at right
and
now.
he did another a scan out there. It was only about 6 months ago. He did another scan out there on the Durupinar site.
Okay, we got a question, AJ, on a couple questions in the chat box. Jeff, I don't know if you can bring those up.
Which one is it?
I guess there's two of them by Life Lessons there.
All right, we'll start with the first one.
Okay.
Is it possible to trace the movements of Noah's descendants in the area after the flood?
So when they say trace the movements, are they talking about scripture or archaeologically?
For me, when I look at this, I'm like, well, aren't we all descendants of Noah? So,
Yeah.
so I think this history is right. The descendants, I guess, right.
Well, one of the things that I find is most interesting is when you look at the Noah's the flood stories, is it doesn't matter where people are at on the planet. They all have a flood story up until the Tower of Babel. And we know that's where everybody was dispersed after that point, and they spread out on the earth. And one of those Droge stones actually has a picture of the Tower of Babel on it, actually, which is kind of interesting. You look at this guy over here, down here in the corner, they've got this picture of a tower on there, and you're wondering what's up with that.
Oh yeah, I didn't. Now I see what you're talking about. Yeah.
So, but on the site with the Holy Land site, he also brings up there's some more. There's evidence of Noah's inscriptions where they show a family of 8 inscribed on the rocks. They've also have 2 very large, what you would call, I wouldn't be sarcophaguses, but grave sites. And they also have a garden and an altar that's there. And so they believe they found the actual spot of Noah's farm where he went to and moved after the flood. He stayed up there in the mountains of Ararat. It doesn't seem like he moved back down the hill. So that's very interesting as well. Once again, I would recommend you watch that video of his because it's got a lot of information there I don't have time to go through. But when you add it all up, it's pretty compelling. It's pretty compelling. Yeah.
All right. Hey, one other.
I would say I found the question that I want to ask you just to see what your answer is to it. Because I kind of remember that Answers in Genesis, they don't believe this is the correct site. They're big on the ark and stuff like that. And one of the reasons they give is they say in the story, Noah is grounded on the mountain of Ararat and does not see the tops of the other mountains until 74 days later, until later on that you can see the tops of the mountains. So are you familiar with that argument that they have?
Well, it says he landed on the mountains of Ararat.
Right.
So he must have been able to see the other mountains at the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I have not studied that much into it. I have a hard time when people get so uber focused on one passage that they can't see the trees from the forest. Yeah,
Right.
so that's not typically the way I like to look at scriptures in that
Yeah.
manner.
Yeah, I just know that, so I just remember that place. I went to their ark and the ark that they have. What is it in Kentucky that they have, which is really really impressive museum they have there. But I remember specifically they're really against this site for reasons and stuff.
Well,
What
I
site
know
do
what they
they
come on that.
push?
So
Yeah,
Do they push a specific site, Jeff? Do they?
I don't remember. I don't think they had a specific site, but they didn't believe it was this site. So again, I'm just relaying that to see if AJ has any answers for the people.
Well,
Yeah.
I know that the Durupinar site, and everybody who's acknowledged this with the mudslides, it slid down the hill significantly over the years.
Yeah.
It could have traveled miles down the hill. And you can see the mud flows start from the very top and keep going down the hill. So where it started originally and where it ended could be anybody's guess.
Yeah, I think that's probably the best answer. The mud flow would probably answer that question. I would say.
Yeah, that makes logical sense,
Yeah.
Hey, there's another question here, AJ. I don't know if you got an answer. How long does it take to petrify an item? That could vary, right? As far as I know.
Out there on the farm in Oregon, I mean, our water was so hard, you could petrify a towel in a few days.
Yeah, it could be.
I know. I remember we did the sprinklers when we had really bad hard water on our bathrooms. We couldn't drink the water; it was so bad. And when we'd left the towel out there on the sprinklers, and then it would get baked in the sun, and then would get sprinkled by the sprinklers. Somebody left it out there in the middle of the summer, so every day it's getting sprinkled and it's getting dried off and it's getting baked. And within one summer, you touched it and it crumbled.
Yeah.
The bathroom towel. So anybody that tells you it takes thousands of years, well, there's a guy out there in Oklahoma, and he had a spring water fountain. He just took a pipe of this hot spring water, he ran it up, and it's a mountain right now. I mean, it's like 20 feet high, and it's just the minerals that have built up from mineral water. So it doesn't.
Yeah. And I did a quick search when my face wasn't on the screen, and it says it can vary. It can vary from a short time to a long time.
Yeah.
So I know we're running short on time, but I would really like to start looking at some of this pre-flood technology.
Okay.
Yeah, you got about 15 minutes, so go for it.
Okay. So one of the things we need to realize is with Darwin's theory of evolution, he basically hijacked all the disciplines of science. All the disciplines in science had to come in harmony with evolution and atheism. And it didn't matter how ridiculous or improbable it was. And so what they would do is, and this is a very common chart that many of us have seen, it's one of these prehistoric timelines. And they basically state that, from 300,000 years, modern man has just been chasing buffaloes and gathering acorns. And that's what all the books tell. I mean, that's what I was told in elementary school, is that we were just chasing buffaloes and picking up acorns for 300,000 years. Well, the reason they come up with that story isn't because there's any evidence that shows that we're doing it. It's because they have no record that we did anything for 300,000 years. If modern man, Homo sapien evolved into life, and they say this 300,000 years ago, and we were just as smart 300,000 years ago as we are today, what were we doing for 300,000 years? Mm-hmm. Why is there no evidence?
Good point.
Why is there no records? Why is there nobody built a house? Nobody wrote on anything? We're just as smart. Remember, Homo sapiens are supposedly us, and we've been around for 300,000 years. So what were we doing? Well, the reason they're caught in this catch-22. See, there is only about so look at Tyrannosaurus Rex or dinosaurs. There's hundreds of skeletons of dinosaurs, hundreds. And like the Tyrannosaurus Rex, there's about 380 to 90% complete skeletons of a T-Rex. And they're 13 million years old, 13 million to 20 million years old.
Mm-hmm.
Guess how many skeletons there are of prehistoric man?
Full skeletons?
Full skeletons. Guess how many? Or let's say mostly. Let's say above 80%. Above 80%.
There's not much, as I understand it.
Probably nothing from what I know. Right?
There's one. There's only one they have.
Okay.
And I wrote an article on it. If you want, if anybody's interested, you can go to the Herald of Truth magazine and look at this article. And it's called Littlefoot, and it's a fraud. It's just a straight up fraud. Okay. So in my opinion, there's zero humanoid skeletons. Zero.
Yeah.
They have none.
That picture right there looks like a monkey.
Oh, it looks identical to a pygmy chimpanzee.
Yeah.
Identical.
Yeah, you know, guys, when I was starting to do research on evolution and I read about Peking man and Java man, and then I realized they were not full skeletons.
No, most of them, most of the time, it's the bone the size of a lug nut. That's what they're extrapolating all this out.
That blew me away. When I first read that, I was like, wait a minute. How come they got these pictures in the books of what everybody looks like when they got this little fragment they're saying was this? That was eye-opening.
Yeah.
That's an eye-opening experience.
It's a joke. So here's the catch-22 they're stuck in. They have to push the date of man back far enough to where, because, if they said modern man was only evolved, 1,000 years ago, well, where's all these Neanderthal bones laying around? If they're that, why can't we find any skeletons? But if they push it too far back, then they have this question, well, what were we doing for all that time? Right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know where they came up with the year 300,000, but that's what they're going with. Well, so they want us to believe that we've been doing nothing for the last, 300,000 years. But what they're really saying is they have no evidence that we were doing anything for 300,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then they want you to believe that we slowly started, here, if you look on their chart here, we slowly started, humans began practicing agriculture over here. And then over here, we started making a few arrowheads. And then we started making some bronze arrowheads. And then we first see, look right here, 3000 BC. Oh man, that's about the time the Bible says, that. So basically, until the 6,000 years ago, the time of Adam, they have no records that we did anything. We were just chasing buffaloes and picking up acorns, right? Mm-hmm. And then they want you to believe that it was a slow and gradual increase in technology till we come to the Bronze Age, and then the Iron Age, and then we come to the we slowly advanced until we finally came to the Age of Reason and all these other ones. But that's not what the archaeological evidence shows at all. What the archaeological evidence shows is out of nowhere, 6,000 years ago, we see man in instant civilization. Instant civilization. We have cuneiform writing. We have advanced building techniques, much more advanced than we do today. Much more. And I'm going to show some of that evidence. So one of the things we need to think about is, like, I'm an electrician. And I started doing electrical work in my 20s. And by the time I get to about 40, I could say I mastered my trade in 20 years. But all I'm doing is repeating what other people showed me how to do. Maybe once I'm 40 till I'm about 65, I could be in a position where I could actually start designing better techniques. Maybe I become an influencer. Maybe I start advancing the electrical trade in 25 years. Well, I guess you get to 65, I'm not ready to hang up my bags. I mean, my bones are broken, my feet are hurting, my eyesight's shot. I can't do anything. So I really only have a 25-year window where I'm actually doing some advanced thinking, right? Well, what if instead of 25 years, I lived to be 900 years old, and instead of 25, I had 850 years to advance my trade?
Yeah.
What do you think I could do in 850 years?
That's an interesting thought. I haven't thought of it
What,
like
what
that.
do you think Einstein could have done in 850?
Yeah. A lot.
I can show you what they were doing in the pre-flood era. And instead of having that gradual increase in technology from the Stone Age to the Copper Age to the Bronze Age to the Iron Age, instead you see instant advanced technology. And then about the time of the Noah's flood, right? Then you have civilization goes back down to practically the Stone Age again and then starts rebuilding again. There's a significant loss of technology at the time of the flood. And there's a lot of evidence for it, and there's three different ways that I've seen this advanced technology. One is through impossible feats of transportation and logistics, where huge blocks of stones are being moved that we couldn't move today. You know, some of them 2-3 million pounds. I mean, a semi truck will carry 40,000 pounds. And you're talking about moving something that's 3 million pounds. I mean, that's insane. The other thing we see is advanced stonework. I mean, precision, well cut, core drilling, saw cuts, where they're cutting stone and placing stones to levels we'd never seen before. And then the other thing is just incredible advances in the quality of these stones and how they were set. So let me show you some few examples here real quick while we have a little bit of time left. Excuse me. So one of them is in Baalbek, Lebanon. So Baalbek, Lebanon was now great. Let me kill this real quick. Don't want to do that very often. Anyway, one of these examples is in Baalbek, Lebanon. And here we see Baalbek, Lebanon was the site of the Jupiter's temple. And at Jupiter's temple, let me give you a good picture here, current slide. Okay, there's Jupiter's temple in Baalbek, Lebanon. And it was built by the Romans. Nobody argues with that. But what many people don't realize is that the foundation on it. And the foundation has these huge stones. These stones, many of them are, this one here is like 60 feet long by about, I think it's about 5 meters high and 15 feet deep.
Yeah.
Okay. And there's the meters there. That's about 2.5 million pounds or 2.3 million pounds.
Okay.
Oh,
man.
Yeah. How did they get that up there?
Yeah. How did they move that? Exactly. I mean, it's crazy. How heavy these rocks are. Like I said, we would struggle to move something like this a few feet. I mean, we've done a few super carriers where we've got 50 axles and 16 semi trucks all loaded together, and we go over a nice smooth highway. We could move maybe a couple million pounds, but there's like a couple years of planning. They're completely impractical. And then here's another stone, and this is called the stone of the pregnant woman, and it weighs 3.3 million pounds. 3.3 million pounds. And they were in the middle of carving it up, and then the progress just stopped all of a sudden.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, well, why would you even try and carve up a stone that you have no way of moving it? Well, we know they moved because there's 3 or 4 other ones there on that Temple Mount that were sisters to it. Mm-hmm. And how they move these stones, nobody has an idea. Nobody can tell us why. how that.
Yeah. We got a comment in the chat box of Genesis 4:22. Speaking of Tubal Cain being an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. So just like God taught them what to do with the the ark and the temple, he may have passed on knowledge that we don't have in the Bible,
Well, and then once again, Tubal Cain, he probably lived to be 800, 900 years old. He had a lot of time to master his trade and advance.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Getting back to your point. Yeah, I got you.
He had a lot of time to get advanced technology.
Yeah. Oh yeah, very much.
Gary says leverage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. They figured out something about leverage.
So let's take a quick look at the Pyramid of Giza. So the Pyramid of Giza, as many people know, is and I gotta fix this slide real quick. I had a problem here. Okay. Slideshow. Current slide. Okay. If you can look here on this picture, and unfortunately, I've got this overlay I can't fix right now, but you can see here from the sides all these blocks. There's 2.3 million blocks in the Pyramid of Giza, and it's impressive. Very tall. People are just little teeny microscopic down here at the bottom, and there's 2.3 million of these blocks. Now, conventional archaeology will tell you that the Pyramid of Giza was built in 20 years. So if you do a little bit of math, they're basically telling you that they moved 15,000 blocks a year, or basically 315 of these blocks a day. And each one of these blocks weighs about 5,500 to 8,000 pounds a piece. 8,000 pounds. That's like your car weighs about 3,000 pounds. So we're talking about twice as heavy as your car, and they move 13 of these every hour. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
The other thing that, like I said, about and you can see the overlay photo here, is later pyramids are all clay brick, and they're very much eroded. You don't see this same type of building after the time of the flood, which we know is about 2,500 BC is about the time of the flood. And you don't see this kind of building techniques anymore. You don't see these huge stocks, these huge bricks being moved. This pyramid at the top is called the Pyramid of Sanchez III. And though it was made with clay brick stones or clay brick building products, and they weighed about 40 pounds. So they went from 8,000 pounds to 40,000 pounds.
So are you suggesting, AJ, then, if I'm following you, that prior to flood, after flood, the age of people decreased? Having that knowledge and know-how over that many years would lead to an outcome like this. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, what I'm saying is there's a huge change in technology after about 2,500 BC. You have these advanced building techniques, huge stones that they're moving, and then all of a sudden they're dealing with clay bricks.
Yeah,
mud bricks.
So is this another proof of the flood for you?
Yes,
or what's
yeah,
okay,
and an
gotcha. Okay.
They just lost a lot of technology after the flood, which we should assume would happen.
Okay, I got you now.
Here's another one. So here's the obelisk of a swan, and once again, it weighs about, if they were to have completed it, it would have weighed about 2.6 million pounds. Okay, 2.6 million. Once again, how they would have moved it in the first place is a huge question.
And this is in Egypt.
This is in Egypt.
Okay.
They attribute this to the 18th dynasty of Hatshepsut, and it's about 137 feet long. Okay, and it's monolithic. It's just one, and they abandoned it because it formed a crack. They can see where there's a crack in it towards,
Okay.
and that's why they abandoned the project, because the stone broke. But the question is well, how would they have moved it in the first place? It's 2.6 million pounds. That's insane.
Mhm.
And then the other thing that we see is these saw cuts, these really straight cuts along the sides of them. And then the scoop marks. That's the crazy part. You see all these marks in the stone, and this isn't cement. This isn't some kind of limestone. This is granite, which is one of the hardest stones out there. And you see all these scoop marks as though they just wiped away the stone, like they just removed it in one scoop. This isn't a bunch of little teeny dimpling. And why would you form, this is the quarry side, why would you form it like that? I mean, it makes no sense. Here's more of the scoop marks. This is under the obelisk. See how they just like scooped away the stone?
That is quite unusual.
Yeah. And then over here again, you can see all these scoop marks. They're getting ready to quarry out another piece, and they just start scooping away at it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is, once again, granite. So the same rock that they abandoned because it had a crack, they were able to scoop out in place. Here's more of these scoop marks. See how the sand it looks like sand, like they scooping sand, and it kind of piled up here. It kind of piled up over here next to where the base of it is, right in this area. The other thing that's very interesting is more evidence of saw cutting. So this is in Turkey, okay? This is in Karahan Tepe in southeastern Turkey. And tell me, and this is at a temple that dates to about the 18th, they say it goes to the 18th century BC, but who knows? But I mean, that definitely looks like saw cuts to me.
Mm-hmm.
What do the quote unquote experts say about that? If they say
they said they used copper tools and they poured wet sand in there and they just kept moving it back and forth to make these saw cuts, and to, for what purpose? I mean, if you think about it, the amount of labor it would take to get these slabs of granite or whatever they were trying to do it's not practical considering the amount of labor you're putting into it. It just isn't. It just isn't.
Does this piece right here look like is it an unfinished piece again?
Yeah,
right?
Unfinished piece. They just abandoned it. But once again,
could it be they just abandoned it or a flood came?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just in Turkey. You can see here they see evidence of saw cuts in Asia Minor. Once again, over there in Baalbek, Lebanon, in Egypt, and in Peru. This incredible evidence of saw cutting in these ancient sites that, once again, they don't know when they date to. And once again, they're telling you that they did this with copper tools and they poured sand in there, which is just, there's been several people that try to reproduce these techniques that the archaeologists supposedly say they were doing, and nobody can. So it's just conjecture at this point. Now look at this. This is over in Aswan in Egypt, and this here weighs about 100 tons or about 200,000 pounds. And it's not just the fact that it's monolithic. It's one piece. I don't know that we build anything monolithically anymore. It's always a little bunch of little pieces because of the practicality and the precision of the work, the mere finish that you see on a lot of the stuff.
How old do they estimate this is?
I don't know about the side of Aswan. I don't know. I don't have it here in my notes. But
okay, that's okay.
Yeah.
But here,
really
look at the corners here. You see these very symmetrical.
That's amazing, man.
Right angles.
Yeah.
Mere finishes. Perfect stone cutting. Core drilling in the corners. The crown here at the top is just amazing craftsmanship that we can't reproduce this nowadays.
Yeah.
Here's this is found in they call this the Serapeum of Saqqara in Egypt, and these are these huge granite boxes, and once again, these boxes weigh up to 80 tons apiece. So we're talking like 600,000 pounds, or no, excuse me, 160,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And how are you going to move something like this? This is a couple hundred feet down in this cavern. And how would you move them and get them down in there? The passageways they show are too narrow. Look how tight it is in these passageways. How are you going to move something a semi-truck can't move down into these tunnels?
Mm.
You know, that's interesting, man.
This screams the fact of there was a level of high technology, and then after the flood, all this got wiped out.
Yep.
And then we went back to, the Bronze Age. And
yeah, no, I get your point. I get your
point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of probably stuff that got washed away that we'll never know about. They just got swallowed up in the earth as far as technology.
But once again, the question is, well, why don't you hear about any of this? Well, because they have to ignore all of this evidence in order to promote atheism that we've been around for 300,000 years. So just because someone says there's no evidence for Noah's Ark or the flood doesn't mean it wasn't suppressed. All this has been suppressed. Once again, mirror finishes, perfect right angles in these huge boxes that weigh, hundreds of thousands of pounds deep in a cavern. Now, here's a very interesting, we look at the core drilling. So they're going to tell you that these holes were drilled using copper tools. Once again, they poured wet sand in there and they slowly ground their way through these core drilling marks. But the problem is like this, the actual core of the drill of the drilling process, they found it, and they've been able to measure the lines here on the core. And for the two things they realize is, first of all, it's continuous. It's not like it's broken or the drill stayed in the same spot. It kept advancing. The hole saw that they used kept advancing consistently. All the groove marks of the same space, and it's continuous. And it was taking about 1/8 of an inch out per pass. Okay, 1/8 of an inch. That guy's cutting. I've cut some granite in the past. I did my countertops here, and it's some hard material. I mean, you got the holes there, and you're pushing on it, and it doesn't really want to go forward, and you have to keep it wet, and it gets overheated. And this guy here, he's taking 1/8 of an inch out per revolution. That's amazing.
Pretty interesting stuff, man. We're almost at the end of the time here. Any final thoughts, AJ, and then I'll turn it over to Jeff.
Sure. I mean, once again, all this evidence, whether of Noah's Ark or of the pre-flood technology, the purpose behind the flood, like Scripture says, is it's a warning message that just as God before went and destroyed the earth because of a time of judgment, he can definitely do it again. It's not like he's opposed to bringing people to know that they have a creator, and that's the point. And so a lot of academia, they want to dismiss this idea that God even exists. Well, and even a lot of the Protestants, they don't focus on the fact that God can be a vengeful God. And a third of the Bible is prophecy, and it points towards this day of reckoning that's coming upon us. And that was the main point behind Noah's, the flood of Noah's time, is that it doesn't matter how advanced your society is, how much technology you have. God, like at the time of the Tower of Babel, they thought,
I get you're coming full circle for me now. Okay.
Just like with the Tower of Babel, they thought they would build this tower so God can't wipe them out with the flood anymore. And you really think you're going to outsmart God. You think we're going to get so self-sufficient and that we can fight and beat God. Well, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, hey, the technologists today are saying that technology is a god now. You know?
Yeah, they're going to live forever, and God's irrelevant. Well,
Right.
another thing's coming. Just like the days of Noah, it says they were eating and drinking and giving into marriage. They couldn't care less until the flood came and swept them all away. Or in the days of Sodom and Gomorrah, they were eating and drinking, marrying, giving and married. The last thing they're thinking about until the time of judgment came. And so the point being here is it doesn't matter how much technology you have, and it doesn't matter how much you ignore it or you want to suppress the evidence. God's the time of judgment is coming upon us. And this is a warning message. You know, yes, God is a loving God. He wants to give us good things, but at the same time, he can be a vengeful God as well. And he can bring destruction on an evil, an adulterous generation. And that's what he says. I'd like to close, if we could, over in 2 Peter chapter 2.
Okay.
And let's bring it up, I think, over there. I think it's in verse 5. I'm going to bring this up real quick. Let's pick it up in verse 4. For God spared not the angels that sinned, but cast them down to Hades and delivered them into darkness to change to be reserved unto judgment. And he did not spare the old world, but saved Noah, the eighth person, a preacher of righteousness, bringing in the flood upon the world of the ungodly. And he also turned the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah into ashes, condemned them in an overthrow, making them an example unto those that after should live ungodly. That's the purpose of a lot of these judgments that God brings upon, is an example. This could happen to you by chance. If your civilization gets too far out there and too far out of control, God has to put an end to it. And to me, it speaks volumes to the world that we're living in today.
I got you.
And delivered just Lot, vexed with the filthy conversation of the wicked. Okay, that tells us something. If we're not appalled by the world we're living in and their conversations, their entertainment, you know, we can't be a part of this world. For the Lord knows how to deliver the godly out of the temptations and to reserve the unjust unto the day of judgment to be punished. And that's something that we should keep in mind as we study a lot of this about Noah, and we bring it to life. The message that we should take home is not only does he provide a way of escape for the just, but it is an example of the judgment that he brings upon the ungodly. And so hopefully I've been able to bring that home, and that we can really take a lot of these passages seriously and remind ourselves that one of the big characteristics that God wants is someone who fears God. And we should always, I don't agree with the premise that it is a respect. We have to have a respect. It doesn't necessarily mean fear, but for the ungodly, it does mean fear. They should fear God, because God is a God of judgment and fairness. So,
all right,
thank you guys. I appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for being here,
AJ.
Hey, I think we just set the record for longest Prove All Things episode, but it's been a very good one. So I'm glad you joined us today, and very interesting stuff. And I appreciate everybody who's been watching today and your comments as well. So we'll say goodbye for now, and we'll see everyone next week in another edition of Prove All Things. Goodbye, everyone.